Chief Investment Officer at Payers. With decades of experience in capital market, joining me today is Mr. Sanjeev Patkar.
I was on 3 different projects, on 3 different industries, and under 3 different managers who have 3 unique styles.
I love how you were showing that even with decades of experience, the learning never stops.
The system should have some early warning nudges or flags to keep it being adaptively flexible to the changing environment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, and I promise today's episode is going to offer you insights that will change the way you think about leadership. No fluff, no buzzword, just real actionable wisdom from someone who has been at the helm of major transformations in financial sector. Our guest today is a leader with more than 3 decades of experience in capital markets, investment management, and corporate strategy. A visionary who has not only managed multi-billion-dollar portfolios, but also pioneered strategies for some of the most influential names in the business. Joining me today is Mr. Sanjeev Patkar, Chief Investment Officer at Payers. With decades of experience in capital market, he has led high-impact investment strategies, guided large-scale portfolios, shaped long-term growth frameworks, and mentored thousands of emerging leaders across the investment ecosystem. Mr. Patkar, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on FaceTime with Leaders. Welcome.
Thank you, Sunny. It's nice and a great privilege to be here. 3 decades plus is across diverse fields, definitely brings a lot of perspective, and I would love to share each and every of them, giving perspectives on how people can look at their life, profession, and other things.
Of course, so let's dive right in. So, Mr. Patkar, with over 30 years of experience in capital markets, investment management, corporate strategy, you have seen and done it all. Now, let's go back to the beginning of your career. Looking back, what's one thing you wish you had known about leadership or management back then? Something you learned the hard way, or an insight that completely transformed how you approach leadership today?
So if you take my background, I always take a privilege in saying that I am a student of finance. I finished my MMS marketing and was lucky enough in that era of early 90s when India was liberalizing to work for one of the foundational firms in Indian financial sector called CRISIL. This was 33 years back. Opening up of economy, you join as a very raw management graduate with MMS in marketing into a finance firm. So it was a very different baptism by fire. At the same time, the core of the analytics remained analyzing business, where actually your core discipline didn't matter. It was about how you bring your perspectives together to understand business as an ecosystem, and trying to find out opportunities where people could have safely invested their money. The biggest learning immediately was in that 3.5 years, we did something like 65 odd assignments across sectors. So then the initial part, on the first 3 months, I was on 3 different projects, on 3 different industries, and under 3 different managers who have 3 unique styles. So suddenly here you are absolutely raw, sometimes in fact raw in your fundamental concepts too, trying to find your own space into something which at that time was pretty unusual. I was the first person to have ever done engineering, management, and that too working in a finance sector in my whole family ecosystem. So it was actually, as I said, baptism of fire and learning through mistakes. So when I worked, you try learning as much as possible, soaking into it, trying to do your work so deep so that the depth is what you think will take you forward. And suddenly you realize that it's not just that, it's about how you take work pressures, how you try connecting systems, how do you. So being an engineer actually helped me during that period, because eventually you have to do a systems thinking, you have to try building blocks, connectivities, etc. And I think I was lucky to be in that part of the growth. The key thing that I realized, that while you have to have a fundamental depth, you have to have an emotional control about understanding things, and situational awareness, something similar to, say, a cricket match where the batsman has to know how many balls are left, what run rate he has to do. Similarly, there is a systems environment which is changing inside the business, outside the business. So when we were working in CRISIL, actually all the earlier environment was actually getting destroyed completely. So India had a lot of import controls, large excise duty structures. All of this were falling apart, which meant the success heroes of previous regime were definitely fighting their battle for survival. So we saw that entire cycle sitting inside, evaluating companies. And I learned that, we can't aim for certainty. Things are dynamic when it comes to business environment. It's your job to try and find out companies where the management style, the business ethos, the structure of the business model, it's built on robustness and a resilient system. If you ask me in one line, brilliance wins quarters, but resilience wins decades. So that's something which really got imbibed into in that period. We rated certain corporates as AAA, which eventually over a decade, although I was not existent in that job, deemed actually vanished from their appearance in the way they were at that point in time. So it was a huge reality check in terms of the way you think life will shape up, you think businesses will shape up, and what actually happens.
Absolutely, Mr. Patkar. And I love how you are showing that even with decades of experience, the learning never stops. And the way you connected a personal challenge to a broader leadership insight really hits home. It's really refreshing to hear someone talk so openly about mistakes and growth. You make leadership feel human, not just as a title.
Sorry. I think it got cut in between. I'm sorry.
All right. So, great start to this conversation. Now, let's move on to the heart of what you do, which is operations, the engine room. Mr. Patkar, as a leader with such a vast portfolio management background, you have been at the helm of some incredibly complex operations. You have led investment strategies, managed multi-billion-dollar portfolios, and built frameworks that help organizations scale effectively. And you have been in the trenches during high-pressure situations, overseeing portfolios that range from $75 million to billions and billions. So, what are the first signs you look for when you step into an organization to assess if it has the right operational framework to scale? And part B of my question is, what tells you whether it's built to withstand pressure or if it's on the verge of collapse?
Yeah, like individuals, organizations are also having their own culture, own behavioral aspects. So if you see what is an organization, the organization operates on 5 M's: men, money, material, methods, and machines. And all of them, the beauty is about how you bring them all together to create a well-oiled engine, which with minimum hiccups continues to both grow linearly and at times exponentially, depending on how the market gives opportunity. It's also very important that the system should have some early warning nudges or flags to keep it being adaptively flexible to the changing environment. So it's extremely important that systems will define how organizations will get separated from one another. Also, the person at the helm, it's a very tricky way of managing businesses or people. There are guys who are absolute control freaks, and there are guys who love running organization through abdication. it should ideally be again a balance of these two, where there is a controlled empowerment which sees to it that there is a aligned goal which is being sought after, and a system which is which endures pressures to respond to the requirement. It's very important that there is no emotional overreaction when adversity comes, and people actually take a back seat, take deep breath, and reassess from first principles basis. How can one handle this adversity in terms of taking the next step forward? It's also very important that the organization should be open to feedback. Many times people keep quiet for it's like they say, no, either you are working for your position or you're working for a person. The day the organization runs a culture of compromising positional responsibilities for personal preferences, I think the organization starts disintegrating it. So it is very important that there has to be an empowerment with a very nice loose controllership, which sees to it that everybody is aligned. Scale is a very important element which every business looks at. But with scale comes, the real test of scale is, scale, if it is not backed with good systems, actually will bring fragility. In fact, scale doesn't bring strength. It actually reveals whether the business has strength or not. So, if I evaluate a company, I spend a lot of time trying to understand the human relationships and how the human relationships are backed with operational management frameworks, so that the goal and alignment and the balance is maintained.
Absolutely, Mr. Patkar. And it's so rare to hear someone connect operational framework with real human behavior under stress. That really hits home. And hearing about that near miss really shows how critical clarity and accountability are. And I can see why teams thrive or fail based on that.
Yeah. So just to give you context, adversity, like a human being, tests character. And character is what you are when nobody is watching you. And it is built through your experiences, through your belief systems, through the, as I said, the organizational nudges which exist, which kind of stop you from, unnecessary overtures, trying to find out pockets of growth which not necessarily are aligned with the organizational ethos. So if you ask me, the single most thing is about how the management is able to separate the three parts of the entire equation. One is strategizing and prioritizing. Second is planning, and third is execution. And each of them, how they are intertwined while respecting human aspirations, and at the same time, giving a space to the human for a fair and positive feedback to the system to adapt itself.
Rightly said, Mr. Patkar. So on that note, you have worked in a variety of industries, from asset management to manufacturing and corporate strategy.
Yes.
Can you share a moment where operational processes were seriously tested under pressure, whether it was managing a portfolio during a market downturn or leading a transformation initiative? How did you maintain stability even when everything seemed to be at risk?
So I'll take three quick examples, and all three of them, pardon me, will be from markets, because that's a fortune I have had having spent this time, of 30 years. The first one was the Y2K, the whole problem. All of us were extremely, so we were young. The whole ethos, the way that it was developing was new, and it looked like it's going to be forever. Something akin to what people are talking about, the AI and all that stuff in today's world. That time, everything, so all these concepts of me leaving from office, my fridge getting started when I'm sitting in the car, all that, the entire market valued companies based on these stories. And over the next 3 years, everything collapsed bit by bit, and then suddenly accelerated on the collapse. And what was a learning that time is when when the plates shift, uh, if one ignores the first sign, the damages are far bigger. And we were probably very slow to respond at that point in time, because you to get aware of a thesis that is broken, probably it was too early in the cycle, and technology was in its first leg. So a lot of way of analyzing, way of working, etc., was not so much backed by technology then as it is today. Obviously, today the systems are far more agile to nudge you for any of such changes. Yeah, so the first one I explained was the Y2K. The second one was 2008 crisis. We could clearly sense, given the earlier experience, that think the plates are shifting, because that probably the data was symmetrically available to many people at same time, and you could see that the US is actually exaggerating or extending the brazenness with which they were lending to people, and something was brewing up. So uh, probably we were far more uh, agile to understand that it will happen. In fact, internally, when in 2008, in my firm, when we were distributing bonuses of 2008, I went to the extent of saying, markets, if they fall 50%, no one will lose the job. And everybody's laughed at that point in time. In exactly 4 months, markets were at 50%. All of us retained our job. And the big duty, which was the big job that was given to me by the management, was to hold on to these people and see how we can cut the cost in the new market realities. So we did 2, 3 things. We institutionalized frameworks to reassess quickly, whether some of the ideas are even more fertile now at lower prices. Concurrently, I actually handled the entire team was brought into confidence. Each of them took close to 25-30% drop in their income for buying the visibility. And in 6 months, 9 months, as markets revived, as our ideas also started performing, most of the situation over a period got back to normal. So having gone through the first cycle, the second cycle definitely was manageable, but at the same time, it was very difficult when it actually happened. The third one was the COVID-19. I don't think anybody was ready at that point in time. Again, given the fact that having seen the couple of 2 cycles, there were very early warning signals which were coming that shipments from China are getting delayed and the supply chains might get disturbed. And somewhere in the middle, we got, and I was working for one of the large mutual funds, and we did get an inkling from the regulators that there might be a issue at some stage. So we were proactive to see to it that we moved to a hybrid environment. We changed everything to from physical signatures to digital signatures, all that kind of stuff. And when actual event happened, we were present to function live as if nothing had happened. At the same time, in our investment frameworks, we had co-opted a lot of, kind of immediate actionables where we said any business which has a global linkage, any business which has a fuzzy business logics, we kind of cut down that position. In hindsight, some of those stocks did give a return, but the risks that we had to carry for the interim period of 6, 9, 12 months was much more manageable, because the system had actually accounted for some of the risks which then kind of set out in the next 6, 9 months.
Patkar, it's fascinating how you kept the team steady while systems were being tested, almost like conducting an orchestra in the middle of a storm. And I love that part where you caught the small gaps before they became bigger issues. That kind of foresight in a leader is really rare.
Yeah, it's important that, as I said, if in my earlier response also, it's very important that the system is so well oiled to capture some of these early divergences, and has to be adequately empowered for a very sharp and direct nudge to the empowered individual in whose hands the execution is there at that point in time. See, I'm a firm believer that nobody comes to office thinking I'm going to underperform. So everybody is giving a part of his life in the job. If you put right systems and if you have enough trust as a starting point and empowerment as an important ingredient, the nudges see to it that the individual is ready with his all disciplines to the right required execution at that point in time.
Absolutely. So, tell me, Mr. Patkar, as a leader who has built and mentored performance-driven teams over decades, what's the secret to ensure that teams, especially during periods of high growth, stay aligned, engaged, and motivated? And how do you foster a culture of ownership and accountability that doesn't crumble under the weight of growing responsibilities?
So, growth is a very interesting subject close to my heart. Everybody wants growth, but growth comes with its pros and cons. So uh, typically growth has to be value accretive, which means your returns that you are generating should be higher than your cost of capital. Those are the businesses which will, in a continuous basis, keep bringing value on the table for the investor. So generally, business is an ecosystem which operates on customers on one side, vendors on another side, shareholders on one side, employees on another side, and at the center is environment, society, and even the regulatory part of the government. Now, when you keep all of them, those seven happy, is when value gets created, and there is a cost of everything. So the visible costs are the capex that you have to take. So you have to, if you take a capex for environment, so society is with you, and many times the customer is also with you because he's engaged with an environmentally sensitive organization in its value chain. In OPEX, overemphasis on efficiency can cause damage to effectiveness. So it has to be a balance between the both, where the organization culture rewards effectiveness while acknowledging efficiency. It's a very tough balance. But last and not the least is when you grow incessantly, there is a risk of if your growth is if your return profile from the business is lesser than the growth that you're envisaging, you will keep going back to markets to either raise money from equity or debt, which creates a value leakage. So it's very important that all three have to be tied up when a company looks at growth. Similarly, culture is an unseen aspect, and which is what you were trying to kind of understand. Uh, the owner operator equation becomes very important. How much of the skin in the game is there of the operating management starts getting important. What they prioritize when it comes to managing systems, ethics, culture, vis-a-vis just profits also starts delivering. How they respond to those situations, whether they are going for shortcuts or not, because speed has its own toxicity. It brings a brazen, you can say, dissonance towards some of the core disciplines of culture and governance. It's very important that you have that governance framework ready, on top of which you can build a growth which then only will be value accretive. So it's like growth that destroys value is not a growth. It is a deferred pain. It will come and hit you sometime. So it's important that the execution engine of or the owners of that execution engine, which is the top, say, 2-3 layers of management council, they live that ethos, saying whatever I do is an ultimate value accretive growth. Automatically, you start cutting down the shortcuts, which otherwise can seep in during seeking that growth. It has to be a disciplined growth.
That really makes high growth leadership tangible, Mr. Patkar. And I can feel the pressure and the solution at the same time. And I really love how you combine autonomy, accountability, and clarity. It's very practical and relatable.
Yeah, it's very important in life. There are 6 things which are very important, Sunny. It's like you have to have intent, you have to have direction, you have to be attentive to what is there in your hand at that point in time. You have to be aligned to a broader purpose, which is going to take care of the overall good. You have to be focused on consistent improvement. That's what, when a very simple term brings long-term compounding. And last but not the least, you have to be action-centric. And when you take the action, you have to be with that mindset, like an owner of that activity, at the same time a custodian of the overall good of the organization.
Absolutely, Mr. Patkar. All right, so great. Now it's time to turn the tables a bit and have some fun, because we have been talking about strategy, growth, and scaling, but now it's time for the segment 3, which is rapid fire round. So, are you up for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So here I shoot you with the first question. If you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
It would have been Steve Jobs here, doing so many things creatively at the speed at which he could do, for a short life, having done so much for the overall change in the way the mankind functions, and being creative in every endeavor that he did. So, in spite of that short life, I think the Anand movie had this dialogue, no, that zindagi badi honi chahiye, lambi nahi. And I think that's something which is lasting in my mind. I can relate to him, but definitely it's very big shoes to try and fill also. But yes, that profile inspires me the most.
Great, Mr. Patkar. Okay, moving on to the next question. What's the one skill you have always wanted to pick up but never did?
So I'm a good bathroom singer. I love music. According to me, music is God's expression to make man's life meaningful. And some of us have natural talents. This interview itself, is a lot about voice modulation. The more you are into actually singing, it helps, but it's a very strong, rigorous discipline. Probably at some stage later in life, I may pick it up.
Okay, great. We wish you luck for your future endeavors. Moving on to the next question. If you could instantly become an expert in any field, what would it be?
In today's world, agentic AI, it will make me an entrepreneur from day one. But at the same time, the good part for me is I'm a systems thinker, and concurrently, I am paradoxically on the other side of being a creative thinker. In the middle comes critical thinking. So I'm a student of these three disciplines. According to me, agentic AI will empower human beings to take care of their own problems over a longer period of time. And where I am standing at, late 50s, I think this is one pivot which is extremely essential in my field. And that is one of the reasons why I have taken up the job that I have taken up with FIRES, which is a tech-first, risk-aligned, long-term, growth-centric investment platform.
All right. So since you have mentioned agentic AI, let's diverge a bit. And what's your take on the Indian IT sector in context to AI reformation going on in the global?
So I think look at it this way. Eventually, the moment markets exist, customer exists. The moment a customer exists, the need to understand him, mine him, service him exists. And data becomes the core of it. What is happening with AI is getting the data, organizing the data, analyzing the data, creating probable scenarios has become very easy. But that's where the fun is. The experienced LLM, like a person like me or similar people who would have spent 15, 20 years in their domains, will actually freak out in next 3-5 years, because they don't need. See, the problem is when you manage teams, you manage personal aspirations, you manage emotions, you manage feelings, you manage tantrums. I'll be very honest, because the genius has a curse that it is only available for some time and it has its own operative template. So suddenly all these things get taken out of equations if you work very, very systematically on your agents. But at the same time, I don't think human intelligence will lose its significance. We all will do something different. So I'll give a classic example. State Bank of India, 1985, first computer comes in, which is as big as half the building, and it gets transported in the night so that there should not be any ruckus by the employees. From there, today, when 35, 40 years down the line, and people who have done MCA are the ones who are aspiring to be working for SBI at front as well as back end. So, somewhere the mankind finds its own answers. If AI starts becoming too difficult for mankind to handle, don't get surprised that there will be regulations which will restrict some of the some of the advances which some of these guys might be thinking at this moment, because this will have a social impact. At the same time, there is another risk that with social media being so widely proliferated now, a nation is not a physical concept. A nation is today. So there are, Meta is a digital nation, X is a digital nation. So somewhere the governments will kind of keep coming, if not directly, at least subtly, into trying to control some of these advances. So something like in Bitcoin,
Okay,
if you
great.
see, the regulator is very, very clear that they don't want their sovereignty to be questioned at some point in time.
Absolutely. Okay, so coming back on track into the rapid fire round.
Sure.
My next question: what's a movie or TV show you could watch over and over again?
So I like Sholay. I would have seen it some 25 times. I will see
Okay.
it probably another 25 times before I die. It's a very,
Which
very
of
important
which of all
reason,
the characters
because
is
I
your
think,
favorite one?
sorry, I think why I like it is also because for the first time in India, so many firsts were there in that movie, and it's a lasting memory for a 10-year-old in me, where we used to rhyme those dialogues in our society culturals, So it's a part of your existence. Some of those guys end up becoming icons, and if you sit and if you go through that movie today, you wonder how somebody did it 50 years back at that scale, at that quality, at that, the kind of content was fabulous. So it's something which I don't mind binge watching that.
Okay, so your favorite character from the film?
Oof, very difficult there. But I liked Sanjeev Kumar over there. And
Okay.
more because I think it highlights what values mean. It highlights what endurance means, and it highlights how people can respond in their adversities. So while all others become the pawns in his bigger scheme of things, the ways the character evolves over a period of time, it has its own layers of humanity, own layers of the brevity, So there's a lot of shades in the one character who otherwise could have looked very hapless with both his arms not there, but is actually controlling the whole canvas there.
Great. And lastly, after a long, busy day, how do you unwind and reset?
So I'm a voracious reader. I love reading, and of late I have switched a lot towards spirituality, because suddenly I'm realizing that there is a purpose why we all are here, and everything around us is connected. So the reason somebody comes in your life, somebody does something for you, good, bad, ugly, these are all accounts which you have created somewhere in your life history, and your cellular memory is just trying to address some of those unclosed accounts to be closed, new ones to be opened, etc. So I love reading spiritual stuff. I love listening to music. That's my biggest way to unwind. Some of the very soft, nice songs, say of Sonu Nigam or Kishore Kumar or Mohammad Rafi, actually just calm you down. And last but not the least, I love just sitting in solitude at times, because see, we work in a market which is where our job is to separate signals from the noise. And by design, you are sitting with microphones which are absorbing every noise and amplifying it. So it's even more important that you go into your own, create a discipline by which the true noise automatically reaches you. It's very unexplainable if you really ask me, but it does happen when you go into solitude and put yourself there for 10, 15, 20 minutes during the day. It builds, it actually, I would go use the spiritual word, it opens you to the spirit, the native intelligence which you can dip into, your soul dips into, gets it into your perspective, and then it sounds like it's your own intelligence, but it's just being fair to the source eventually, which is aligning you towards itself. So
Great,
yes,
Mr. Patkar.
I
So
think they are all good recovery mechanisms. They set you up for a new, fresh challenges that come thereafter.
absolutely, Mr. Patkar, with your vast experience in capital markets, investment management, corporate strategy, you have navigated countless transformations in various industries. Now, let's think about it this way. Uh, Imagine you are leading a company that's in the midst of a major transformation, the kind that promises significant growth but also brings its fair share of uncertainty and challenges. So now, in that situation, what do you think would be the most critical factor to get right in order to avoid potential pitfalls? And how would you ensure that the organization stays on course amidst all this disruption?
So just to in life, when you face a problem, the simplest way is to go to the first principles, And I believe in this 6 why framework where you keep asking the question why multiple times. There is third or fourth or fifth why is where you start getting a very sharp answer. And that's where your modus operandi, your next leg gets, kind of wizened up in your own mind. So generally, what is transformation? Transformation is a movement from an obsolete past to an uncertain future in which you are supposed to get the organization ready for, it's like driving through the fog. How do you drive through the fog? Or drive through a pitch dark road, you will go 10 meters at a time, and then only you will travel that 1,000 kilometers journey over a period of time. So it's like even in cricket, when you're suppose 7 wickets down and you're batting the last day, your whole focus will be to survive that day, given suppose assuming that the runs that are out of your purview at that point in time. So you will live by every over. You'll say, okay, this over will not get out. Next over will not get out. So you play minute by minute, over by over, session by session. And I think that's how you have to handle transformation. So first you have to synthesize what are the causes of those obsolete past. Is there something which we are still carrying? First you have to let that go. Is it something which can endure even from that past, which we can carry forward? Work more on it, and definitely in the do some sort of a scenario analysis in terms of what is the right road for the organization in its existing domain. Because if you ask me, eventually money is not made by by just running a business. It's made actually by servicing the customer to extract value from him profitably, which means you have to invest time in fact more to understand what the customer wants, his changing needs, changing patterns, competition, etc., which will help you to get a right path of endurance during this period. So that, and then you have to put responsibilities, that who will handle deepening existing capabilities, who will handle bringing new capabilities, who will handle holding on to the existing customers, who will take care of bringing new customers, who will take care of controls on costs during such a period. Because it's very important that you don't go overboard on your costs when you're going through these transformations. So some of the companies which I have invested, in fact, the big money is made when the company accepts that there is a death standing next 6 months, 12 months, and they have come back from there. You realize that it's the same business. It's just that they have found a new way of doing things, where the customer values their existence in the supply chain. So it is very important to understand the customer, understand the industry chain, and understand what competencies can we have so that you extract a larger part of that value, which will eventually take care of everything. So just to give you context, when I joined one of the brokers, it was a broken franchise. Nobody wanted to work there. Systems were not there. It had a pedigree in 90s of being a very large broker, but it had lost its significance. What we did was we actually changed right from the sitting arrangement, the lighting. My average staff which came on board had 1.5 to 2 years experience. But we built an analytical system which was built bottoms up, which was different than what existed in the market. And we said we will only attack opportunities where big money can be made by large institutions over a 2-year period. And it worked. We opened up doors of some 40 odd chief investment officers at that point in time, which was unheard of. And from a business which was struggling to exist, we actually disbursed bonuses in excess of 150% for next 3 years for each of the employees. So it is all about, and like in one of the earlier questions you did ask, that it is all about making the smallest denominator in your system an owner into the final outcome. So in the manufacturing company where I was part of the transformation as a head of corporate strategy, we just put one line everywhere. We said, each of your action has a financial reaction. That one line made a massive difference. And when the organization runs on some simple ethos, on these simple lines, the outcomes are pretty big. The big outcomes don't come with big work. They come with thousands of small things, little things done well sequentially over a period of time.
Mr. Patkar, that's such a sharp breakdown of what really holds the transformation together. And the way you highlighted both the fragility and the fix makes it incredibly relatable. Thank you so much for sharing the insights.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Each of these journeys is actually where you yourself start understanding who you are. And lot of times people, the physical existence of ours refuses to accept the broader intelligence being in favor of us, circumstances being in favor of us. Lot of randomness that exists in our field, you start becoming cognizant of it, and you start being in gratitude with positive attitude. When you manage both of those and you stay in the moment, you don't have to bother about outcomes.
Absolutely. So now, speaking about the leadership, you have recently taken the step into board education by joining Directors Institute. What was it about Directors Institute that stood out to you, and how has being a part of it shaped the way you think about leadership, governance, and your role at the board level?
So my entire work so far has been more as either an observer or an operator. I see a lot of value that people with our kind of experiences can add to companies which are trying to build their future over the next 10, 15 years. And I look at it more as a mentoring profession where you remain true to your core ethos, and you broaden the funnel of opportunities in terms of contributing outside to being a moderator or probably a steward for the bigger cause of creating shareholder wealth creation, which is what attracted me. So in a world which is performance centric, the world where decisions are being taken under uncertainty, I think people who have seen cycles will become valuable. People who have understood the value of governance into the framework will be required in the board. And I found the curriculum very interesting and contributory to a professional who otherwise has a risk of getting quote unquote retired at an age where he has so much to contribute from his experience. So it gives actually a participatory opportunity where you are responsible, you are accountable, but without a direct control, which is a very tricky path. It also enables you to share your wisdom in terms of taking decisions under uncertainty with inadequate information and probably very uneven environment when it comes to outcomes. It also, if you ask me, value creation is going to be the game of every board. Each board has far more responsibility now with the regulator coming heavy in terms of people being adequately equipped with disciplines as well as protocols to carry these functions. And I think there is a huge value of being custodian to the managerial executive. Otherwise, there is always a risk that the managerial executive in his personal gains has a risk, embedded risk to the organization, if not controlled or nudged by experienced professionals who come with governance architecture as one of the things. It's like it's also gives a perspective of in life, whatever you do, there has to be diversification of disciplines, like diversification is there in portfolios, and there has to be diversification of perspectives, which I think this profession keeps you alive for as long as you go in life. So that's where I'm coming in from. The boards, the executives are typically trying to optimize the resources and manage the present, but the board has power, according to me, to decide the ultimate goal while protecting the future. And I think that's what excites me more in this whole thing.
Let me tell you, Mr. Patkar, that's such a grounded way to describe the transition from operational leadership to boardroom thinking. It's refreshing to hear someone speak about board education with that level of honesty and curiosity. And let me tell you, Mr. Patkar, this has been an incredibly enriching conversation. Your insights into leadership, operations, and the evolving business landscape are truly invaluable. It's clear that success, whether at the helm of transition or at the board level, hinges on not just understanding the numbers, but also the people, the processes, and the culture behind them. So, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today and giving our listeners such a deep dive into the strategic thinking that has shaped your remarkable career.
Thanks. It was really my pleasure to get into such a interesting and intriguing conversation. As a thought, I would leave with some concepts which I think will help people who are in the managerial roles. That impermanence and cyclicality are the name of the game. Stewardship is going to be a measure of delivery ahead of just the ownership. Survival is equally important while you are chasing success. Behaviorals, methods or the behavioral controls, the behavioral aspects actually overpower some of the models at work. And there has to be coherence in whatever you do, because coherence will win over brilliance. So success is not a single event. It's a cumulative result of all the things that you have done over a period of time, and it's a continuum. It doesn't end. It's a journey. It's like one peak is a start towards moving to the other peak. Businesses, economies, organizations, individuals, they are all adaptive systems. And it is very important to, to contribute to it, where the reward has to be viewed through the cycles in terms of how you survived in a difficult phase and how you thrived in a good phase to be at a better place than where you started. All this becomes very, very important. There has to be a clear focus on trying to thrive through emerging, like I have been highlighting, operating during enduring the adversities, being anti-fragile to come out with a better muscle, with no compromise on the internal strengths of the organization while remaining coherent, ethical, and purposeful during this period. That's where it is the a job of a manager is to create something which lasts beyond him. It's our job to make the place better. As I said, efficient, effective, at the same time, leave the space wiser, human, and resilient to stay beyond you.
Rightly said, Mr. Patkar, and thank you for this masterclass conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. If today's conversation made you think differently about leadership, transformation, or navigating the complexities of scaling businesses, then we have done our job. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep leading forward. And we will see you in the next episode.